So HISA has proposed some changes to the anti-doping and medication control rules over the past week or so, and HISA is seeking public comment on these changes. Now, you can go to the HISA website. You can read the press release that's been sent to all the news organizations to get to the nitty gritty of what's being changed. Includes the introduction of transfer testing. It'll allow a prospective owner or trainer of a horse to request the testing of a sample for a limited scope of substances. Creation of a Class D controlled medication category for certain medications. Reducing first-time penalties from a fine to a reprimand with no disqualification. Reduce sanctions for controlled medication violations resulting from vets list samples. Ability for people to request DNA testing for samples reported as adverse analytical findings. Opportunity for reduced sanctions for the responsible person for findings from a finite list of human substances of abuse. That's something that's been a topic of discussion in the past. So there's several more, but HISA is requesting comment, and this is something that is required from their relationship, their arrangement with the FTC. There's a public comment period before any of these rules get approved by the FTC. So you have until January 5th to make your voice heard. And if you have any issues or any comments or anything that can make these rules better, you should speak up. And I know, John, this is a pet peeve of yours. People not making their voices heard and then complaining later on.
Well, this is your opportunity. This is the opportunity to do a couple of things. Number one is to review the proposed modifications of a series of rules. Number two is to understand the process of why these modifications are being put into place, that these modifications were reviewed and discussed by horsemen's groups, and HISA representatives went around to a lot of the major racetracks and had meet and greets and open-ended discussions with trainers and veterinarians and owners in those respective jurisdictions. Some in the big racetracks, some in the smaller racetracks that get, affected more from a financial standpoint. And all those comments and discussions, helped shape and form the new rules that are being proposed for modification on some of the drugs and regulations you mentioned. Joe, to me, this is, a constant process of being tweaked and up, and improved and changed, much like a lot of regulations should be, where they're being changed with the times. They're being changed based on what they can see is working and is not working, what science is bringing to the equation and how that should modify some of these rules. But at the end of the day, this should, for no other reason, shut people up about whether or not after the fact they said, oh, we were never involved. Oh, we never had a say in things. Oh, how come, Big Brother is doing this and we don't? You know what? You have a window now from now until January 5th to review all the rules, all the modifications, and make comments and submit that insight, because a lot of it may be good. I know when they did the tour, they got a lot of feedback and they appreciated it to help kind of craft and tweak some of the modifications they had. If you don't have the ability to sit and read the rules and regulations and modifications that are being proposed, I understand. Well, then what you should do, here's another opportunity for you, is you can attend or listen to the postscript of the University of Arizona Symposium, where HISA Highwoo is going to be talking about these rules and modifications during a 2-hour panel. And if you don't have the time or the intellect to be able to understand it all, and I don't, I had to have a lot of this spoon-fed to me and explained to me, then at least if you listen to the symposium and get an idea of what the changes are, and then you read the summary that is in the press release or that is being published by a lot of the major institutional, articles, then you have the ability still, you have 3 weeks from that point to be able to comment and send your thoughts and changes in. And we will put up on the screen, you should make any changes and comments to the HISA Assistant General Counsel, Sam Reinhardt, at samuel.reinhardt@hisaus.org. That's Samuel.Reinhardt@hisaus.org. No later than January 5th. So now is your opportunity. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true. Like you gotta be part of the solution, otherwise you're part of the problem. And this is something, like I said, the FTC's regulations require that there is a public comment period, and it works sometimes. Like I remember when there was the proposed rule for changing the tax reporting rules for wagers, and there was a public comment period, and thousands of people, including myself, wrote comments about like the onerous tax reporting rules that are costing people money every single year in a game that's already hard enough to bet and make a profit at. And I remember the FTC chair saying at the time when they adopted the rules, the new rules, saying this was very, very helpful in helping us understand kind of at a nuanced, granular level this rule, how it affects people. So the people at the FTC, like they're not experts in horse racing or medication control or any of that stuff. So if you can explain it to them and there's a reason that you think the rules should be changed, you got a good chance of making some actual adjustments. And that's, obviously what we're looking for here. We're looking for collaboration because we've seen the rules get adjusted, like the metformin reporting thresholds just changed recently. And that's big news. And obviously I think some people think that there were too many people that got caught up in that over the last year or so. So that's something that's, changed with public feedback. So it's, this thing is, it's a changing organism. Like, and you have to contribute to it if you want it to look the way that you want to look, instead of just, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is what a lot of people do. But I think we're too far down that road. Wanted to mention real quick. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, Joe, I don't know if you're going to talk about the David and Gordo Q&A on the TDN, if that's what
I mentioned it earlier, but you can.
So I mean that's worth a read. That's definitely worth a read because David brings up a lot of good points, and unfortunately you can't comment to the TDN about it, but you can comment to HISA if you want to incorporate any of the things that David recommends, or you're against some of the things that David recommends. But be that as it may, I think it's worth the read to get a better understanding of like what went in behind the scenes in the process and why they made certain changes and why they're using penalty points for controlled medications, almost like driving infractions. Where you get points as opposed to just immediately you're suspended. And I think that if nothing else, this is your opportunity and your window to have your voice heard. And if you say something and it doesn't get incorporated, then you have a beef. Then I get it. But like you said, if you say nothing and then you have a beef, shame on you. I'm not listening to your nonsense anymore.
Yeah. No, this is the time. This is the time to make changes and to affect change if that's what you want to do.